So I'm gonna just cut myself about 1.5 inches wide strip of this feed sack so I can use it as a binding for the inside of the pocket. Need to change the blade on this rotary cutter. And then what I'm gonna do is I am just gonna trim this down so that I do this a lot, so I tend to eyeball things because I know where it's supposed to be and what's supposed to happen. I cut it down to like 1/4 inch. Seam allowance, maybe a little more. There. So what I am going to do is stitch this to the top from the right side. I'm going to use some of my clips to hold it in place. The same on the other side. Don't worry if it's not exactly, if it's a little bit long, you can trim it after you've done that first row of stitching. All right, let's go to the machine and take care of that. All right, I am at my pressing station, and what I am going to do is press this up. Gonna give it a good steam. You want a really hot iron. I am pressing it back this way. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna trim this white so that it just tucks under like that. I don't need a lot of bulk though, so this is actually a little bit wide, but there's my like 1/4 inch. So pressing that. I'm gonna trim this. If you have a thinner quilt, sometimes you can get away with folding the top over twice, especially if the coat is thin, if the quilt is thin, and then you don't even need to worry about this. All right, so I am going to stitch down. I do 2 lines of stitching. The first one is maybe at 1/8 inch. I line it up with the outside edge of the toe of the foot. I check to see that I like the stitching, and I do. The second piece, it's at like 1/4 inch. Yes, maybe slightly beyond 1/4 inch. Again, I line it up with the outside edge of the toe. And there you have 2 lines of stitching along the top of the pocket, and I will repeat that for the other pocket. All right, now that we've got the 2 pocket pieces done, we return to the jacket top or the jacket fronts, and I will pin these into place. So what I'm going to do now is pin the pockets onto where I would like them on the jacket. When you're working with the old quilts, things aren't square, and so if you look at this piece in particular, it shifted slightly. It hangs down a little. It's not quite square, and that's just the beauty of working with an old quilt. But when I put the pocket piece on it, I am going to try to keep that as even as possible. In this case, what I might actually do is pin this into place, leave the pins on, but then when I sew the front of the coat to the back of the coat and I can actually put it on and see what this looks like, I might end up shifting the pocket down or deciding to leave it square on the piece. So what I'm going to do is fold these pieces under where I would plan to stitch, and I am going to pin them into place. It is thick here. Sometimes having a hammer and hammering down helps. So I'm just going to do that. I'm not going to baste it. It's just as easy to do it with the pins. So. All right, so that piece is in place. And we're going to move on to the other pocket. Now I'm going to work on this pocket, and I do it the same way. I fold under the two sides, and again, remember, if it's bulky, if you're working with a thicker quilt, go ahead and take a hammer to hammer down those areas of bulk. I will pin it in. You can measure here, or you can also just eyeball it. A lot of times the quilt pattern will help you out in this area, making sure to pin this all in place. This area right there is a little rough, so when I am done sewing, I might do something to patch that. I am now going to sew the fronts of the coat to the back of the coat. I'm going to sew them, I'm going to stitch them at the shoulders first. What I do is I line up the shoulder seams, and I use my Wonder Clips to clip those into place. Once I am done with one shoulder, I will do the exact same to the second shoulder. Now we are going to sew the shoulder seams, the front of the jacket to the back of the jacket. And I sew these at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Each pattern has different seam allowances. Mine uses a 1/2 inch. I will repeat this process for the second shoulder seam. All right, now we are going to go back and put the arms in the arm side.